Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast. We're so excited to have you here. This is the perfect place for leadership growth, learning, and inspiration. Let's get started.
All right. Welcome, everyone. This is the Savvy Leader Podcast. I'm thrilled for you to be here, and I cannot wait to get started on our guest interview with Barb Monson. I'm going to let her introduce herself in just a moment. I just wanted to let our audience know that you can find us here every week, and you'll find fantastic casual conversations between thought leaders and local professionals with news you can use and tips and all kinds of insights that you're going to be grateful you had the opportunity to share. So here we are. I am Kristin Gallatin, and this is the Savvy Leader Podcast. All right, Barb, I'm so thrilled to have you here today. Thank you so much. Please tell us about yourself.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Kristin. I love having smart discussions with you. I love being in your company. So really appreciate being on your podcast. As far as just for your audience, my background, I'm a leadership consultant. I'm an international speaker. I have a lot of content that I bring to just a variety of audiences. And it's really around the fundamental belief that everyone deserves to thrive at work. And in today's post-COVID workplace, that's a lot more challenging for a lot of leaders than it used to be. So I bring in workplace solutions and strategies to help solve problems that just come about because the way that we're doing work today is different. And many of us are struggling to adapt. My former life, I had a 26-year corporate career in corporate finance. And I did everything from having a temp job, doing the filing, to a CFO. So I've seen a number of leadership ranks and a lot of different experiences that have really helped shape the way I serve corporate people today.
That is so amazing. And I've read your story and on your website. I just love how you're so authentic. You talk about the real you. You talk about your childhood. You talk about so many personal things. And I think that in this age of technology, being authentic and sharing personal stories and personal history has so much more meaning than it used to.
Oh, I appreciate you even looking at that. Thank you. Yeah, it was a little, we've talked a little bit about identity. It's a little nerve-wracking to put yourself out there sometimes in a very public way where anyone can access. But yeah, I also seek meaningful connections. So yeah, it's anything I can do to get to know someone and have them get to know me is helpful.
That's so great. All right, Barb. So, of course, as per usual, some of our best conversations are found offline.
Right, right.
But we are here now, and we're going to have this discussion about the corporate life, because that is, that's a big part of what you do is working with people in corporations, and you talk about teamwork and leadership and the struggles. And like you just mentioned, post-COVID, I think we have all found ourselves in, situations unexpectedly. We're navigating different personalities and different arenas than maybe we had expected to when we signed up for positions that we hold in corporate, and so from your perspective, what are you seeing as maybe, I don't know if we would call it the biggest challenges, if we want to say post-COVID or just in general, like what are some of the biggest challenges or most common challenges you're seeing happening within our leadership teams and work teams in corporate?
Well, I think post-COVID in particular, I feel like the rules changed really rapidly. And so leaders who have been in leadership for some time, for decades now, we've been working very collaboratively. We work as teams. There's project teams and launch teams and research teams. Everything has been teaming, and we equate teaming with that's how you drive results. And we've switched now to a very individualistic model. Culture informs the workplace. So people at work more individually. They see themselves as more separate from the corporate objectives and goals. They're less interested in the collective. And I think leaders are struggling to try to figure out, how do I bring people back together when what they really want is to be driving results? And in the midst of all that, it's really messy because people are not co-located. Work is different. It's flexible. And then we're thankfully, we're much more aware of inclusiveness and the way we need to have differences between people and how we bring that together. But complicating this, and it's getting to be a long answer, is just the fact that a lot of the differences that create workplace tension are things we don't often think about. It's not the things that we see visually in another person. It might be how introverted you are or extroverted, or that person that's just a little too loud or a little too cheerful in the morning. And we have a lot of just workplace differences that don't align. And that creates more division and wanting to work individually and remotely and not engage. So leaders have this whole big messy ball. What do I do with all of that and still drive results?
Wow.
It's a long answer. I know.
No, it's not a long answer. I mean, it's so relevant. And, do you see, so to your first point, you're talking about driving results. Do you see the kind of results that they need to be attaining? Has that changed at all, or has that remained the same, do you think?
I feel like the results have remained the same. There's, if anything, there's more pressure for performance. And if you're a public entity, certainly publicly traded, the economy adds extra pressure, and we're seeing big corporations not delivering their quarterly results. So I think performance and results, there's a lot of pressure, and then a lot more confusion on how do we actually engage people to produce those results.
Mm. So engagement and pulling people together. So we were chatting about the work from home movement. So many people love it. Some people prefer to be in the office, but the flexibility and all the dynamics that come along with that make it very attractive for the average person to prefer to work from home, and including just money savings and time savings.
Right.
So there's a big push though to get people back into the office. Can you shed a little light on and maybe help our audience understand from the leadership perspective? They're not just trying to be, mean. They're not out to get everybody and make them miserable. There's a real purpose that helps drive results that are better for everybody by being in the office. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think there are a couple of different angles. In one sense, sometimes I will say the leaders can be out of touch on this. I can see the argument both ways. There's pros and cons. I see it both ways. I myself was consulting with a company throughout COVID, and when the return to office first started, the leader that was having everyone come back into the office was over my leader, who said, "Hey, everyone is super productive from home. I'm in no hurry to have you change anything." But the other leader just missed seeing people. So actually, it had nothing to do with the work that was getting done. It was his mindset on what does productivity look like, and what does a work collaboration look like. He didn't know how. He didn't have another picture for it, so he hadn't adapted. And now that I was in a finance role at the time, also you have to consider, are these data-driven roles that don't require a high degree of interaction, or are they customer facing? So it's not a one size fits all. It depends on what's the level at which decisions are made, how much autonomy does the role have. And so there's a lot of complicating layers. So I think leaders need to consider all of that. On the flip side, going to work with others is not just social, because I hear the argument all the time. I'm an introvert. I don't need people. I just want to heads down. I want to do my thing. But I think we've all been in circumstances, if you've been in the corporate world long enough, you have seen people get promoted to management that are not good leaders. They are very good, very strong individual contributors. They are promoted based on the merit of the tasks they are doing. And leadership is a different skill. If you are always at home, autonomous, alone, not engaging, no one can witness your other skills other than your tasks, your completions, your performance. They don't see if you are able to handle a difficult customer call. They don't see, are you someone that walks across the aisle and helps with a struggling coworker? They don't
Mhm.
see those other skills that are actually leadership
Mhm.
skills. They can't witness them. So just from your own career trajectory, you have to allow people to get exposure to you in a number of different circumstances that can't physically happen from a distance.
Oh my gosh, that is so right. So, in thinking about, some of our contributors that are looking to move up the ladder, being in the office is going to be a big part of that, just being in front of the people that you need to, show, what you've got, the skin you've got in this game and your passion to get things done and, your drive. So that's really, really important. Other than the social aspect, have you heard any other arguments for why some of our employees would rather work from home?
The as far as not needing the social aspect,
Yeah, I'm
well,
sorry.
I think just like you said before, it saves time and energy and money commuting, packing lunches. I mean, for myself, I remember that was an immediate benefit. Like, wow, I don't have to by 6 a.m. I don't have to plan everything I'm going to eat today because I have to haul it with me. It's there's just a different amount of freedom, but
Mhm.
so I think it's just it allows you to feel a little bit more like a human being on a day-to-day basis and not lose that time commuting.
Yeah, especially for some folks that travel a great distance. Now, there's two more things I want to touch on with this. One is that so I felt like at some point we were really as a, there was a huge like outreach to people globally. So now companies can have, when they allow remote work, they can find talent. They're not restricted by, a geographical location. They can reach all around the globe if it makes sense for them. Do you see companies actually doing that? I mean, I'm just curious if people are taking advantage of that on a great level, or if it's just kind of every so often, or
I don't know. I don't have any stats around this, so I can't tell you it like with sweeping terms if
hmm
certain industries or sizes of companies are taking more advantage. I think it's more role dependent. So I work with a lot of individuals actually too, and so some of them might be technicians that work with equipment, and so they need to be on site. And then you might be a business architect or a data analyst who can do everything remotely, or IT can do everything remotely. So again, there's an argument either way, and I think we hear the headlines that companies are bringing people back more and more, but I don't know honestly if what the evidence is of it or what those parameters are that make them make that decision. I think it's really it's unclear for me.
That's really interesting. You know, as I mentioned to you, I had a conversation with a friend who was a little dissatisfied with her corporate life because, they had recently mandated, that employees start coming back to the office 3 days a week. And she said, which was the mandate before, but now they're actually telling us which days we have to be in the office. And
Mm.
if we happen to be sick or, something comes up on if we leave the office, for a meeting, we actually have to come back. If it lands on one of those days, we can leave. But then even if our meeting ends at 4 o'clock, we still have to come back to the office. And in addition, if she was sick, she would have to submit PTO time
Oh,
versus having sick time. Um, it led her to believe that the reason for this new policy, this work from home remote policy, was because there might have been some other people in the office that were maybe taking advantage of the flexibility of working from home. And she felt that the larger whole was being penalized for,
mhm.
the smaller misdeeds of a few, or the deeds of a smaller few, I guess I want to say.
Right. Yeah, that's a sticky situation because it doesn't feel fair. But from an administration standpoint, how do managers or HR teams, how do they allow benefits differently that aren't uniform if it's a large enough company that might lend itself to legal retaliation or yeah, how do you navigate that as an organization? I think it's really messy still.
Mm, yeah, I would agree. I mean, and it's just interesting because it seems like that's one thing that's always been a sticking point within the corporate arena. You're always going to have a couple of people that, for varying reasons, some out of their control, that they need to take advantage of some benefit that the company is offering, and therefore, because of this abuse that they have, you know, overused a benefit. It's been lost then to the greater, majority of office employees. And regardless of what it is, it seems like we struggle. HR seems to really struggle with kind of addressing those particular individuals, and instead these kind of blanket policies come out.
You
Have you
know,
ever heard
I,
of or thought of or has seen any really great tactics to handle that particular situation? I'm just curious of what your experience has been.
I think you nailed it. And the sweeping rules are easier. I think
Mm,
that if someone's abusing work from home as a privilege or a benefit, if they aren't performing, it's a performance issue. It's not a work from
mhm,
home issue, it's a performance issue. And
mhm,
just like if you have a high performer that maybe is toxic in the workplace,
mm,
or they aren't communicating, they're doing their work but they're not communicating in a way that their leader expects them to. Those are all performance issues. I think that we
mm,
don't know collectively how to handle performance issues very well. And so
mm,
it's easier to blanket them under, well, we just won't allow anyone to do that. And then we can either avoid this uncomfortable situation or hope that it improves. And I just, particularly here in the Midwest, there's a great degree of conflict avoidance, and I don't know how to have that conversation.
mm. Right. I wonder if they have an easier time on the East Coast.
You have to ask our friends out there.
I think so. I think so. Well, let's shift gears a little bit because I really want to hear from you about you. Like I said, I loved your story on your website, and you talked about a few things that really piqued my interest. You talked about describing yourself as small. I
Hmm.
too am only 5 feet tall. Um, so I can relate to that, absolutely. Um, but what were some key moments or experiences that helped you begin to discover your inner strength and find your confidence, even though you felt a little smaller?
Yeah, I think it was a very slow progression over time because the whole part
Mm.
about being small, I'm 5'2", so I tower over you a little bit, Kristen. I didn't hit 5 feet till I was a junior. I was taught to just be that small,
Mm.
quiet person that fades into the background. And I brought that
Mm.
to the corporate room. And
Wow.
I also worked in very industrial, male dominated spaces. And by no means do I intend this to be a gender divide. I have learned so much from my male counterparts, and I'm grateful for it. But I also had to learn, how can I be heard? I have something to say. I know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about. How can I be heard in a way that also recognizes I'm in a service function and I don't want to take over the room. I just want to be in it. So some of it is just was me being my authentic self, but also learning how to navigate, how to present ideas in a non-threatening way, how to kind of know my place, but then take up a little more space. It took a lot of
Mm.
unlearning and relearning and trial and error. And that's why I read a lot of well-intentioned books and blogs and everything that tell you exactly what to do, but presenting yourself without the credentials behind it. I teach on this a lot, like when to chameleon and when to peacock. you, you have to be ready to peacock, and it It depends
Mhm.
on you and the data that you have to back it up, but it also depends on the room you're in. And
Oh,
there's another side to the equation. And so that's why you can't just take a formula from someone's book and do this and lean in and do that. It
mm,
highly depends on the players and the room you're in as well, and your role.
mm. That is so insightful. I love that you talked about the chameleon and the peacock. That's so relatable. And I think about that, in my earlier corporate years. Um, there was a group of young men that were always climbing the ladder, and I called them the Peacock Club.
That's great.
Obviously, my own insecurities there, but that's so fun that you also, noted that, because I don't think that we, and I can say as women for sure, but even some men, we're not always as good at being the peacock.
Right.
I feel like we struggle with, like you just mentioned, finding that balance between sharing your attributes without being overbearing and being kind of a turnoff to
Right.
the people that you're talking to. So I think that's really important. Do you have any key topics or one key thing someone could do to help them overcome or identify that?
Well, I think we need to disassociate peacocking with being boastful, because I think
Mm,
many of us women have a tendency more than men, but it can also depend on the type of role. We don't want to appear boastful, and so we fade into the background more than we need to. But if you have just your impact, like focus on your impact, which is far beyond your tasks and your capabilities. Impact is measurable, impact is data, it's irrefutable. You can
mm,
use that in conversations, use that to drive your strategy, your ideas. But again, there is that other piece of knowing the room. And so it's hard to say a broad statement. I
mhm.
teach it as a class, but I do personal brand work one-on-one because it is so custom.
Wow.
And it's important to remember too that peacocking is not always loud and flashy. For
Okay.
someone, their authentic style might mean that peacocking is more quiet and confident, and just like the way they present themselves. It's not always filling up the room. So
Mm.
it's what does it look like for you, and how do you take your authentic self and your value, and how do you articulate it?
That's awesome. Thank you. That's so thoughtful and insightful. I love that. That's definitely going to give me something to think about later. So, also you've talked in the past about how you were driven and resilient, and you discovered that in your high school years. Can you share a little bit about how that all kind of came about and how you discovered that within yourself?
Might you be referring to the cheerleading picture on my page?
Mhm.
You talking about the high school part?
You did, girl.
I think
Mhm.
I I call myself a really unlikely leader because I never saw myself that way. I'm not the person that walks in the room and everyone knows I'm there, but leading means a lot of different things. And when I look back at those high school years, like you said, I was resilient and I was driven and I liked to make a difference in what I was doing, but it was on my very small scale in my very small world. I was the cheerleading captain,
Mhm.
and for fear of having my former cheerleading friends find this out about me, I suppose it is on my website, but I used to choreograph and write all of our content
Mm.
and all of our cheers. And I never took credit for it because my confidence was so low. I thought, well, what if they don't like this? That I gave credit to someone else, my good friend that went to another school who was a basketball player.
Oh my gosh.
We were both cheerleaders when we were young, and she outgrew it and became a basketball player, but I gave her all the credit. And you'd
Oh,
think after years of cheerleading and them liking it, that would be an indicator that, hey, maybe I could take credit for this because they're all working. No, no. I consider myself an intelligent person, and yet I'm a slow learner. Like I don't know, I see the big picture, but I don't always see what's right in front of me right away. so,
oh my
so
gosh.
I don't know if that's resilient or driven. I kept at it, but I reflect on that a lot, and that attitude has informed a lot of the ways that I've shown up, that I've had to kind of overcome. Of So for those of you in the workplace that feel like you are that chameleon fading in the background, if you're taking credit for your own work, you are already way ahead of me. And I became a CFO, so you can do this. You can do this.
Right. Oh my gosh, because that's such an incredible story. I mean, thinking about, and so you never told anyone, like, ever? Oh my gosh.
No, if they happen to come upon this will be the first time they hear it.
Oh my goodness
So
gracious.
let's not yeah, well, I want this to broadcast, but
The
yeah.
world premiere.
I am
Barb
now outed.
Monson
Oh my goodness.
choreographed all her own cheers.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
But I share that because we so often look at other people and it's like, well, of course they can do it. Look at their background. Look at this. They know how to do this.
Yeah.
Well, no, we all had to deal with our own junk to, get where we are. And we're all messy, and we all have areas where we are more confident or less confident. So I share it just so people know that, yeah, I've been a mess too. And I'm always a work in progress.
Would you say then that you were not kind of born a natural leader and that you developed that attribute, or?
I think I'm not a natural born leader from like if you have a mental picture of a leader, I think I thought of the person that walks in the room and everyone wants to just follow everything they do. Someone visionary, someone that, just leads the charge. But I I was a natural leader in a lot of small ways. I'm the leader that made sure everyone in the room had a voice, that made sure everyone was okay, which is why my business, the foundation of it is everyone thriving at work. So how do we arrange things so that they're optimal for everyone and the organization? And so I think I lead people to see themselves and see the brilliance in themselves. I lead groups. I think there's natural tendencies there that I didn't see as technical leadership in the field, but they've shown up throughout my life.
Wow. And now the name of your company is Move Your Mountain,
It is.
which I love. I just
Thank
think that,
you.
I mean, it really resonates with so many, and me for sure. Like, Jace, it's just time to move that mountain. Stop hesitating, stop waiting, stop beating around the bush and picking at it. You've got to just do it. Now, how did you come up with that? How does that play into everything that you do?
It it's it plays into everything I do, and yet it's outside of it at the same time. When I chose my business name, I'm a faith-based person. I don't have a faith-based business. I'm a faith-based business owner. So I serve people of all faiths and backgrounds, but I was in the book of Matthew at the time, and it's a verse in Matthew that talks about if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. I'm careful with that because I'm not saying that should be a self-serving, like if I believe I can do anything, it's for a higher purpose that faith moves that mountain. But I also, in reflecting upon myself and just my own challenges and growth, that I haven't always had that faith. My faith goes up and down. And I think about the moving of the mountain is very different from climbing it, going around it, avoiding it. We usually talk about, climb the mountain, get to the summit. But in those instances, those mountains in our life are never gone. They're still there. And I think as I'm forming the business and I'm reading these passages and I'm thinking it's a different energy to move the mountain, and then you're seeing situations completely differently. You're seeing yourself differently versus this challenge, this bad thing in life is there, and I just have to adapt to it and get around it and accept it. Moving it means you don't accept it. And I think it's a bigger game changer, and it's more powerful.
Wow.
And that's where the name came from.
That is so great.
Thank
Now,
you.
as a woman of faith, have you, I mean, I can see that on your website too. I mean, you certainly don't, you're not trying to alienate anybody, of course, but you're
Right.
not afraid to talk about your faith. And I
Correct.
think that too is really powerful. Have you found that that has been something that helps keep you going, or have you found that something that, have you gotten any pushback on that? I'm just, personally, I'm curious what your thoughts are as a
Mhm.
Christian woman myself.
I've never gotten pushback
Good.
on it. It's either, neutral or, oh, I'm a Christian too. So it's usually appreciated. And I'm it depends on the situation. Certainly it comes out more when I'm working with someone one-on-one. If I am hired to speak at a conference, it isn't being brought up, right? It's not woven into my speeches. It's certainly how I show up, and I pray over my audiences that they are getting what they
Mm.
need. But so yeah, I have lines too, but it certainly informs what I do. And as those identity pieces, when you step out of a corporate role, that I already struggled with my identity and confidence, and then became a leader, became a business owner, all these phases of life, my identity would change externally. And so to me, it's an anchor to come back to of where my identity actually comes from.
Mm.
And it just helps me do better at everything I do. I'm not saying I'm good at that, Kristin. I need a lot of reminders. It definitely goes up and down, and I fall into the trap of, measuring myself based on where my business is or how many people I'm serving. But so yes, that is like everything else about me. It's a work in progress.
Awesome. Now, you touched on public speaking a bit, and I know that you're an international public speaker. When we were talking about confidence, do you feel like, was that a hurdle that you had to overcome? So many people struggle with speaking in front of an audience, or I hear often that they're no problem speaking in front of an audience, but have a one-to-one, meh, no thanks. And you kind of have both sides covered, and that fascinates me. So help me understand that piece of, your history.
I love that question. I know I'm the weirdo that likes to public speak. Former accountant, right? But I was always the weirdo accountant that really loved people too. So,
Oh,
so yeah, what does that look like? I,
mm-hmm.
the speaking, I love it because I love the energy of the room, and I can have a very quick impact to a lot of people.
Mm.
And it's fun. And when you're in the physical room together, you see the aha moments, and it's just engaging, and you can make a quick difference. I am all about actionable answers, actionable solutions, implementation. We can all sit and listen to someone speak and get inspired and then forget it tomorrow. So whenever I speak publicly, I also provide a digital handbook that they have for follow-up.
Mm.
And it's got all the key content, it's got bonus
Beautiful.
materials, all of those things, how to get a hold of me if they have questions. So because implementation is the long game. And so sometimes it's a one and done, but sometimes they want help on implementation. And that's where I can come in with a workshop, or sometimes it's one-on-one. And I think that's why what I do sounds like, well, is it this? Is it that? Is it one-on-one? Is it groups? It's all of it, because it's the same end result. People thriving at work. It might be an individual that they have a challenging person on their team that they don't know how to manage. The person is the one not thriving and they need help, or frankly, they want a different job and they're not thriving and they don't know how to present themselves for a new one. So the end game is the same. The problem
Okay.
might look different.
Wow. Such incredible and fascinating insight, Barb. Now, tell us about where people can find you and what your specialties are, because I'm sure everybody is dying to know how they can connect with you.
You're too kind. If you
Mm.
can remember my name, that's my web. It's Barb Monson, Monson, barbmonson.com. And so everything is there, whether it's a speaker for your conference, I've done all employee meetings, leadership team meetings, anything like that. Um, it, workshops, women's events. My specialties are really the team dynamic and workplace strategy for groups, whether it's leaders or everyone. Some of them, about every 6 to 8 months, the most popular speeches rotate. And right now, like for the past year and a half, actually, it's been all about teamwork. People want to hear about teamwork. It's been the chameleons and peacocks and how to stand out. And then the newest one that is gaining traction is understanding differences and people who bug you. So,
Oh,
and again, it's all workplace strategy. How do we navigate communication? But just really being practical and talking about like where it's messy today. So, so we get into some of the tough conversations, but I don't talk about it if it's not actionable.
oh, that's fantastic. I love that. Thank you so much, Barb, for being here with us today. This was just jam-packed with all kinds of incredible insight. I should almost charge our audience and send it to you.
Oh my goodness. No, you've done a beautiful job just leading questions, and every conversation with you is a smart one. I love your insights that we didn't get to talk about as much. But yeah, I look forward to just continuing to be in your circle, Kristin.
I love it. Well, thank you again, Barb. I'm grateful for you today. And again, everyone, you can find Barb at barbmonson.com, MONSON. And you got to go check it out. You got to read her story. It's fantastic. And lean in and find out how she can help you and your team succeed. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of the Savvy Leader Podcast. We were so glad to have you. Be sure to check out the SavvyLeadersLounge.com for further inspiration and resources to help you be the savvy leader you are always meant to be. See you next time.